moving on to Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign ruled by Saturn.
Aquarius has been an energy that I've come to know over my life, and I was confused when I first started studying astrology by the concept of the water bearer and the image of water involved in an air sign. I could never quite put those two things together in my mind, and still it's a bit of a conundrum, right? It's fixed air, which is also seems like a contradiction in a way. How do you fix air? And how do you bear water if you're an air sign? So over time, I've come to see that water flowing from the urn as the symbol of Aquarius as ideas, and sort of like Aquarius providing a vessel through which things can flow, like a steady, like a conduit. They're sort of a conduit for new ideas, things that are forming around us that we might not be able to see clearly yet. The Aquarius can pick up on these movements that are forming, the ideas that are forming. They often see a few steps ahead of everyone else, many steps ahead, years ahead sometimes. They just feel what's in the air. They're like getting all these transmissions from all over, and their ideas are electric often, and they're seen as eccentric, but that eccentricity is very lovable. The Aquarian eccentricity of being in touch with kind of things we can't quite see in touch yet makes them, maybe lends a little bit of apartness from them, loneliness, or they might feel lonely, but it's also because they're just a fulcrum for ideas. Electric-inspired quality is a big one for Aquarius. For me, their humanitarian tendencies, their sense of right and wrong and justice and where humanity can be better is often highly developed. Their minds can be insatiable, just chewing on ideas, discussing them with others. They can be quite clever. Their powers of abstraction are incredible. The ability to think about things in an abstract way, which can be very useful in solving problems, because they're not quite in step with the old ways of doing things. They're always kind of attuned to new ways of doing things. You can almost tell them anything. An Aquarian friend will listen to you. They're incredible advice givers. They don't judge, in my experience. They're not judgy at all, because they've probably felt some of these differences very closely, because they're a little bit, they feel a little bit different than everyone else, right? And they probably are a little bit different than everyone else. And so they're just incredible listeners and really good at giving advice.
Yes, I agree. One thing when I'm talking to an Aquarius and doing a reading or talking about the Aquarius part of a chart, talk about how an Aquarius doesn't even understand why anyone would want to fit in. Like they want to be an individual and be different so much that they don't even understand why other people do try to fit. That's how much they don't feel that way. They really are unique individuals. And usually when I say that to an Aquarius, they're like, yes, 100%. Even when I was 13, it didn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So they're really unique individuals. They really value their freedom. And the conversations, it's such an interesting thing how they're so that future thinking and that energy that runs through them. It's like they're always talking about things that everyone will be talking about 10 years from now. Right. They're just kind of ahead of the thing. They're very excited by the future, and they have a faith in the future that is wonderful for everyone else to see. And they're not limited by society. They're not limited by certain expectations or conventions. They really are free to live in an authentic way, in a way that I don't think the other signs are. You know, if anything, they almost might diverge just for the sake of diverging, an Aquarius. So they really tend to be sort of in the world, but not of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Authenticity is such a great word.
It's interesting what you said about how they are great listeners and they don't judge. I think that's really true.
That's a good segue, I think, to the shadow side of Aquarius, is that because it is co-ruled by Saturn, and Uranus traditionally ruled by Saturn, and in modern astrology also ruled by Uranus, which gives that rebelliousness or eccentricity that Uranian need to be free and independent and different. Is also tempered by Saturnian vibes, that there can be that difference from others can be quite lonely for Aquarius, I think, especially when they're younger, before they've really known themselves and are comfortable with some of the apartness that they have from others. So that Saturn nature, I think, can also lend a detachment to Aquarius, where there's the cliche about Aquarius that they care about humanity, but they don't care about individual humans as much as they care about humanity as a whole. And Aquarians will admit this. I really do care about animal welfare and or a whatever cause they're, because usually involved in a cause of some sort, or that they're always fighting for a cause, whether through conversation with others or actually out there in the street or being activists. They're often involved in causes. They care about the cause itself, but the humans who take part in the cause, they're just like, it's harder for them to connect emotionally with sort of human needs and emotions. And it's so funny, that rebelliousness of Aquarius, which is also endearing and makes them really interesting and fun to hang out with or know. It's reflexive, right? So there's not always a time and place to be rebellious. There are some situations in life where the tried and true method is the one that's probably going to see you through to the end of a certain situation, whether it has to do with relationships, money, or love, that there are certain steady and conservative values that have their place, which are just they don't come naturally to an Aquarian. So whereas they might always be taking the novel path, or they're painting these novel ideas that can work against them at times, that they're just reflexively throwing off tried and true courses of action. So yeah.
It's true. Sort of independent or rebellious, to a fault. They sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes the wheel is great and you can just use the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have a lot of the same things. There's a certain distance, a detachedness sometimes that can show up with Aquarius, sort of that closed emotionally. It can just be that they're hard to read. They don't show the emotions too easily, but there can be a sort of distance or a detachment. Also, I think sometimes Aquarians can be on their devices too much. They're super tech focused, which actually I don't think we mentioned in the light side. But definitely tech, very good with technology, to the point that I think the shadow side is that they are on their phones a lot or play video games a lot. They're very into technology. They can be a little bit unpredictable, and pretty much almost everything that I have has to do with that struggle to connect, to be vulnerable. Sometimes Aquarians just aren't great at discussing their feelings, and that can be hard for them, and it can be isolating, which you mentioned and discussed really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in terms of my top highlight for Aquarian, is their humanitarian, the fact that they are such great humanitarians. They are often they're on the leading edge of change, often, whether they're doing that on the micro level in their circles of friends and family, or they're doing it on a macro level that's making larger change in the world. The Aquarian's ability to see many steps ahead, to see years ahead, and to see what's necessary, really for humanity to survive and thrive, or the whole ecosystem to survive and thrive, whether it has to do with climate or other very vital causes. Their ability to lead in that regard through ideas and through debate with others and activism is vital for us. It's so important for all of us, and they're often the ones taking action in that regard. And in terms of their the strongest shadow side about Aquarius, I love so much about them. It was hard to choose one that's that left out, but detachment would be one of them. That detachment from others' emotions can bring a chill wind to relationships with Aquarians at times, and probably makes them feel lonely as well at times.
I agree with yours very much. Mine are sort of adjacent, I think, to yours. My highlight that I was thinking was the visionary future thinking of Aquarians. It is sort of like they're a step ahead of all of us, and they really help to usher in
that future with their vision. And then the low light, I also struggled really to think of one, but I think that sometimes, and I think it's the emotional detachment thing. This is a very specific low light. I think it comes from the emotional detachment thing. Sometimes an Aquarian, when they do get close to someone, can sometimes do unpredictable things to kind of create a little distance without much warning. So they might just say something to kind of surprise you, or tell somebody a secret at a dinner that they weren't supposed to tell, or they almost create that distance through these unpredictable actions that they don't even mean to take. It's sort of coming from an impulsive place from within them, I think, but they're sort of a funny, unpredictable thing that they do with the people that they are the closest to, because they need their space and their freedom. Yeah. And that can really be self-sabotaging and very impulsive. So, yeah, perhaps that's a bit specific, but I've seen that come up so many times. They're funny. Yeah. I love Aquarians, though.
I do too. I have a lot of them in my life. I love them very much. They're great. They're they're just Sagittarians, but they have that kind of similar quality to me, and that they can be really fun, even though they do carry a gravity around to them. And that loneliness, they just make life always interesting. And conversation is usually interesting with Aquarians. So
yes, that's true. Yeah.